Right, hello everyone. Welcome back to our conversion to video of Dr. Dave Regis's suggested opening repertoire for new and beginner players and for indeed veteran old fogies like me looking for something different. And the good doctor recommends E4. We've already looked at E5 and D5 and what to do against those in the previous videos. And in this one, we're going to look at probably Black's most successful answer to E4. And certainly at Grandmaster level, the most common response to E4. I think at junior level, E5's probably just about got it. But at Grandmaster level, the most common. And that's this C5, the Sicilian Defence. Now, I'm going to indulge myself a little bit here and possibly confuse some of the beginner players watching this. But it's worth it, and you'll understand by the end of this why Dr. Dave recommends what he does. So the Sicilian is incredibly theoretical. It's been played just millions of times, millions and millions of times, and there are literally dozens, in fact, forget dozens, hundreds of well-known lines, all analysed by the Grandmasters and running 20, even longer, 20 moves deep plus. So not that that matters at junior and beginner level, but if you want to go on and become a really strong player, you are going to have to know a way to deal with the Sicilian defence. And well, here's where it gets fun. So in this position, White has, excuse me, knight to f3, the most common move, which we'll get to in a sec. D4 is playable. And you get takes and usually this and usually this. And White sacrificed a pawn to have quick development. It's called the Smith-Morra Gambit, and it's pretty level. Computer says, although Black's a pawn up, he's not really -1 because White's got compensation. That's a possibility. You can play b3, which is perfectly all right. Nothing wrong with that at all. Slightly off the beaten track way of dealing with the Sicilian defence, but very, very level. And remember, if you're playing White, really, you want to be trying to get plus 0.2, 0.3, 0.4. But this is fine. It's dead level. You've got the slightly unusual wing gambit. You remember the Evans gambit from E4, E5? Well, here's a version of it, which again, level-ish. Computer says a bit of an advantage to Black, but the idea is something like this. And you put your pawns in the middle of the board. This is going nowhere. You're going to get one pawn back because there's three people attacking it, three pieces attacking it. And White will set up a really strong center, probably do that. Maybe f4, knight f3, get castled, attack on the king side. Obviously, Black gets some moves in between. But the wing gambit is a possibility. There's other possibilities. You could go King's Indian defense mode, and I don't know why the squares are staying lit. They don't normally stay lit, but whatever, it doesn't matter. You could play G3. Okay, perfectly reasonable. The computer will say it's about level, give or take, and Black will play moves, but White will go something like probably knight e2, but you could play knight f3. If the knight's not in the way, then you can play f4, get castled. Fine. It's a possibility. You have f4. And then knight f3, put the bishop out, swap the bishop for a knight on c6 if there is one. d3, knight c3, get castled, and you have what's called the Grand Prix attack. You can just play knight c3. You can just play a standard closed Sicilian. Okay, lots of options for White. Fine. The most common one's knight f3 by some distance. And then Black has lots of options this time. The most common is d6, but e6 is okay. Knight f6 is a bit off the beaten track, but is not too awful. You can play a6 early. You can play g6 early. You can play knight to c6. And I think you could even play b6. I think pretty sure I've seen it. So loads and loads of things you can do. Fine. The most common one is d6. And now White has different options. White can play bishop b5, which is a very quiet, safe option. White can play knight to c3 is okay. Nothing wrong with that. You could go super quiet with d3. It's not the most challenging, but you could do it. You could play the wing, not that, because that's cheating. You could play the wing gambit now. You could just play it a move late and takes and here and takes and d4. No, that's d3, d4, right? A million things you can do. But the most common for White is to play d4. And now Black actually really only has one good move, which is takes. There's other things you can try, but takes is best. And once again, white has options. You could play here. You could go into the Smith-Morra Gambit again. You can play queen takes, which is underrated, actually quite dangerous. Or you can play the most common move, which is knight takes. And black will just develop a knight here, attack the pawn, and white will develop a knight, defend the pawn. And now we're in another position where black has a million options. And you've got the Najdorf. That's one. You've got the Scheveningen. There's another one. You've got the classical variation, knight c6. You've got the dragon with g6. I believe you can play e5. I think that's called the Sveshnikov variation, but I could be wrong because not only do I not play e4, but I don't play it in the Sicilian. I think you can play knight to d7 as well. So you've got like a million options, right? Like a million options. Let's just say that black plays a6. Let's say it's a6. It's the Najdorf variation. And then white now, theory has this move. It has this move. I'm pretty confident f4 is a move. F3 is certainly a move. I think queen f3 is a move. I'm pretty sure you can play the bishop there. I'm pretty sure you can play the bishop. Oh, not there. There. And oh, goodness me. I think you can play a4, trying to stop black pushing the pawn forward. I think you can even play the knight back to b3, right? You get the idea. There's a million moves. But that's if you want to play this as a grandmaster, you're going to need to know some of that. How are we going to get around this as sort of newer players, or if we just don't have the time to learn all the openings? Well, the clue lies in something that we played against this, funnily enough. And if I just go here and here, we were quite keen, weren't we, to play early d4. And what we did in this position to support it was c3. So we had another piece attacking that square. And we can do exactly that in the Sicilian defense. And I'm going to put the computer analysis on now just to show you that this is doable. And we can play this move known as the Alapin variation. Now, it's not, I think it's the third most common move at grandmaster level. And as you can see from what the computer is saying, it's fine. There is nothing wrong with it as the player of the white pieces. It's just not the most common, but it's fine. And what it has the advantage of doing is avoiding all of that theory learning that I just showed you. I don't have the time to do all that. I'm sure you guys don't have the time to do all that. Here's our way around it. And it even has the advantage of having a kind of a similarity to what we just saw in the e4, e5 openings, doesn't it? Because we've got c3 and d4 coming really, really quickly. So, okay, what we're going to do in the rest of this video and the next video is have a little look at some games of the Alapin Sicilian. And unusually, I'm going to leave the computer analysis running. And that's because I don't feel with this one that I know it well enough to really make too many comments. So it's just going to give me a little bit of help and us a little bit of help to see what happens as we go along. So a little bit cheeky, but hey, let's take advantage of this amazing tool that chess.com offer us, the analysis tool, just this once to help me and you a little bit with what are the best moves. And so what do I know about the Alapin? Well, the first thing I know, and I'm surprised that the computer says knight f6, not because I think it's bad, but because I'm pretty sure d5 is the most common move. And d5 is what's going to be played in our first game. Now, we're in Budapest in 2005 for, what have you got for us, Dr. Dave? Boros versus Partial. And in this game, black plays d5. And e takes d5, queen takes d5, d4 is played. So we've got our early d4. Now, a quick departure, what you might find in the Alapin is that you will end up with what's called an isolated queen's pawn position quite a lot. And I'll just show you an example of one. Takes, now get down there, and takes. And this is an isolated queen's pawn. And what it means by isolated is there's no white pawns on the two files next to it. So it's not going to be defended by a pawn. That means that in an endgame, by the way, the computer even here says basically level. That's just level. In an endgame, because it can't be defended by a pawn, it could be quite weak. In a middle game, because it controls space in the middle and there's room to put pieces on squares all around it, it can be quite strong. White could put rooks onto the open files and use these open files as a place to attack. Black will play moves that involve blocking it. So white will use it as a base of operations. Black will attempt to stop the pawn going to this square and will try to work against it as a weakness. So black will play moves like knight to f6 because it stops this, e6 because it stops this. You might get b6 and bishop b7 because it points at this. You'll probably get one of the rooks coming to here because it blocks this. So look, there'll be a million videos on the internet, no doubt, by grandmasters about isolated queen's pawn positions. Let's not overdo it for the beginner players at the minute. Just be prepared that this is perfectly all right if you get to this situation. So, okay, fine. So back to our game. So we've had d4 and black plays e6 in our actual game. And the computer doesn't think much of it, I guess, because it's just blocked this bishop, I guess. So tiny advantage white. And white in our game plays knight to a3. Interesting move. And Dr. Dave actually gives it a exclamation mark, question mark, which means interesting move in chess speak. So it does various things. It gives the possibility of the bishop developing here and attacking the queen. It also gives some interesting ideas of coming up to here. And that could be very nasty. If you imagine the knight there, it would be check and forking the queen and forking the rook. So, okay, and computer says dead level, nothing wrong with it. Even though it didn't recommend it's the best move, by the way. It's there, it's the second, third, no, it's dropped off the best move. So the computer's saying just develop, you know, knight f3, bishop e3, whatever. But in our game, knight a3, and it's fine. Knight f6 from black, as you would, just developing a piece. And white goes straight for this not particularly subtle threat of here. And black's got to do something about this. And the best move is the one that is recommended at the top. Well, it was recommended at the top. It's now the second, third best move. Not much to pick between them. But it's knight to here, defending this square. And white just develops, as you would. Absolutely fine. Takes from black. Interesting. And takes from white. And at this point, everything looks tickety-boo. White's quite happy with life. Black's quite happy with life. Computer says pretty much dead level. Best move for black, bishop e7. Other moves are okay, but bishop e7 is the best. And I'm going to turn this off just for fun. What black plays in our game is bishop to c5. And I've turned the lines off now because I want you to be able to press pause and see if you can find why this position is suddenly plus 3.5 for white out of nowhere. After all, this bishop's defended twice and only attacked twice. And it's attacking the white queen. So what can possibly be the problem? So if you want to solve this little mini puzzle, feel free to press pause. Otherwise, I am going to continue in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, and here's the problem with this move. White can simply take. What? Why? How? Who? Where? But that loses a queen. Well, yeah, it doesn't lose a queen because knight here. And what's going to happen is you're going to put the king somewhere, but you've got problems. You've really got some problems. Let's say that we put the king to f8. Well, knight takes queen, and we're also threatening this knight. So straight away, black's got no time to recapture. Say black takes here, bishop takes, it's check, and you've got bishop, bishop, knight, knight, rook, 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 and white's the whole piece up, a full bishop up. Lovely, thank you very much. If in this position instead, black decides to try knight takes, well, okay, but now we have bishop takes, knight takes, knight here, check. And if you remember a while ago, I said it wasn't only forking the queen, it was forking the rook. So the king has to go somewhere. Let's put it somewhere, knight here. And yeah, now we've got problems because black has lost an entire rook. The other 3 pieces are level. Black's probably going to get this knight for something because it's stuck. But the absolute worst is that white is a rook for a knight ahead. And at a strong level of chess, that is usually going to be terminal. So, ouch. Yeah, very, very good result for the Alapin in the first game. So let's put up our analysis board for the second game. And here we are in the year 2000. Dr. Dave has done it again with a semi-final game. Get this, a semi-final game in Kiev in the Ukrainian Under-16 Championship. Dave Regis, you have clearly got the greatest database of chess games anywhere in the world. I just don't know where you do it. And our players are called Mironiuk and Borisov. Wonderful. Okay, let's see what happened. E4, C5, C3. Here's our Alapin defense. And I just, by the way, point out that, of course, this is perfectly okay for black as well. Yeah, I know we're looking at this from the white point of view, but black can play the Alapin. It's perfectly level. It's not a problem. Okay, it's not like this is suddenly winning. For white, it's just a good choice. Knight to f6 is played in this game, so an alternative, and that hits this pawn. So white could defend it with d3, but that's terribly passive, and oh, it's not very exciting. And I suppose you could probably play queen c2. Yeah, look, there it is. But it's dead level. The only one that the computer says is white trying to make an advantage is to actually push the pawn forward and attack the knight. So we do. And in our game, black plays knight to d5. He's got to move the knight. Knight to f3 from white, just a nice developing move. Knight to c6 from black, nice developing move. And here comes d4. Here's our early d4. Here it is. Here's our pattern. Remember, very, very similar to what we saw in the e-pawn openings. Early d4. And black plays takes, white plays takes. Queen to a5 check is not played in the game, but isn't very good. Bishop d2 is a good response, just kicking the queen away. So we're not too worried about that check, at least not in this position. And black plays d6, which is actually the computer's recommended move. And bishop to d3 from white, just developing a piece. Computer's not overly thrilled about that one. Just if we're going to play this position in future, just worth noting that the computer's recommending all sorts of things that aren't bishop d3. So bishop here was on the list, just develop the knight was on the list, but it didn't like bishop d3 very much. It's not a disaster look, but it's definitely saying, oh no, that's a bit better for black. So bishop d3 is played, and black plays bishop to g4, pinning the knight. Can't move the knight because the queen's behind it, so perfectly logical, perfectly reasonable. White castles, and black thinks now that he can try to attack this knight again, so takes, and I'm just going to take the lines off here just to not spoil the fun. Takes, and knight takes e5 from black, because definitely two pieces attacking the knight's attacking the bishop. Black thinks this is great. Unfortunately, as you can probably tell from the bar, it now is +9. This is actually a catastrophic blunder. And I'm once again going to invite you to hit pause if you wish to try and work out why it's a catastrophic blunder. But otherwise, we'll carry on with the video in 3, 2, and 1. And actually, this pin is a bit of a mirage, because after knight takes knight, bishop takes queen, white has this move, bishop to b5, check. And how exactly are you planning on getting out of the check? You've got no legal king moves, and the only piece that can get in the way, nothing can capture the bishop, by the way, the only thing you can do that gets in the way is here. And after bishop takes check, the king cannot capture the bishop because the knight protects, so the king has to go here. And I'm guessing that the best move is rook here, lining up. You could have played knight takes as well, actually. Just out of curiosity, is knight takes f7 any good as well? Yeah, knight takes f7 is just as good. So you could play here with check. The king's going to take, and presumably, okay, now it says take here. Yeah, that makes sense. So we leave the attack on the rook, and we're still attacking this knight. You have to be a little cautious. I can imagine beginner players walking into this kind of thing and getting back rank mated. Whoops, be careful. We don't want to do that. But yeah, in this position here, bishop takes, bishop here, queen here, and this is just curtains. I think I'd just play there and do it the simple way. Okay, so that's 2 great results for the Alapin defense. Please note, like I kept saying with the other openings too, there's nothing wrong with it for black either, right up until the point where they make a catastrophic blunder. Perfectly playable opening for both sides. It's not like we've suddenly refuted the Sicilian defense and it's finished here. Right, one more. Where are we? We've got initials. We've got H. Richards and M. Nielsen from 2002 in the Politiken Cup in Copenhagen. So we're in Denmark for this one. And white starts with E4, C5, of course, C3, fine. And we're back to D5 here from black. Takes. I'm just wondering, can white, yeah, white could play E5 here as well. I'm just looking, it's perfectly level if white wants to try something else that's a little bit off the wall, but E5 is quite doable. So you don't have to play pawn takes. The second best move, look, E5 is actually interesting. But takes is played, queen takes is played, and D4 is played. And I guess this all fits in with what we've done previously, so it makes sense to stick to the game plan, so to speak. And this game, knight to C6 is played. Nothing wrong with that. So we've now got 1, 2, 3 pieces all attacking D4, only 1, 2 defending it. So not unreasonably, white plays knight F3, another piece to defend. Knight F6 from black, just developing. Bishop E3, yet another piece defending. And by the way, there's now 2 pieces attacking C5. And so black plays E6, which lends another defender to the square. Strange move from white next. I mean, it's a good opening, plus 0.4, plus 0.5. So white's done okay. That's about what you'd expect as white from an opening. Not really sure about this next move. I don't really understand quite why. It's not a disaster, is it? I mean, it's still level. It just seems, I don't know, maybe there was some fear of pawn takes, and the knight coming here. So he wanted the pawn to guard that square. I don't know. But A3 was played. Bishop E7 from black. Bishop D3 from white. This is all fine. Excuse me, castle's black, castle's white, perfectly reasonable. Rook to D8. By the way, remember when I said the isolated queen's pawn position that black would want to have loads and loads of pieces blockading this square? Yeah, it's been achieved. Queen to E2 from white, and now a really odd move from black in what's a pretty level position. You know, it's pretty level. Black comes out with queen to B3, and I might turn the lines off at this point just to not spoil the puzzle that's coming up for you. White plays pawn takes here, and black isn't too fussed about that. Black just plays knight to D5, I presume, thinking that they'll take this, that perhaps that takes away the defender of this pawn. It's not, you know, okay, fine. But look at what's happened to the bar, +6 and a bit. So once again, I invite you to try to find what exactly it is that white can do here that is the winning move, the best move in the position. So if you want to try and do that, press pause. Otherwise, I will carry on in 3, 2, and 1. And the best move for white, well, I'll give you a bit of a clue. This queen doesn't have many squares. This is no good, is it, because of the queen? This is no good because of the rook. This is no good because of the queen and the bishop. The 2 pawns are no good because they're both defended by their mate. This is no good because everything hits it. This is no good because the bishop hits it. This is no good because the pawn hits it. So white plays bishop to C2. And suddenly the black queen has no escape squares. This isn't any good because of the queen, just because the bishop's moved. There's only one square to go to that looks at all safe. And this bishop's got in the way of the defense of the queen. Okay, well, this pawn's not defended anymore. Let's try it. And so a little bit of bonus credit here if you can find white's next move now that actually wins the game. Again, if you want to pause, feel free. Carrying on in 3, 2, 1. And bishop takes here. Bishop takes H7, check. Black has to deal with the check. And now we've uncovered the attack from the white queen to the black one. And white just picks up a queen and is miles ahead on material, is actually a queen for a bishop ahead and will win. Hopefully, certainly once you get to a decent level, queen against bishop is yikes. So that is the end of the first video on the Sicilian Alapin defense. A fantastic idea from Dr. Dave. A little bit off the beaten track to play this. Perfectly okay, as say the computer's telling us, nothing wrong with it for white whatsoever, but I really like the fact that it fits in so nicely, potentially, with what we were doing against e5. So hopefully we might see a few common themes, a few common patterns. Okay, hope that was helpful. And I will be back shortly for another 5 games in the Sicilian Alapin Defence from the good Dr. Dave Regis. Thanks for watching. See you soon.